This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
Kazakhstan's oil production has risen by 2% in May, an industry source said on Tuesday, an increase that defies pressure from OPEC Plus on the Central Asian country to reduce its output. Kazakhstan has repeatedly breached its OPEC Plus production quotas, citing the difficulty of telling Western oil majors, such as Chevron and ExxonMobil, to curtail their plans. The OPEC Plus has decided to speed up output increases, in part to punish members not complying with curbs by adding to downward pressures on international oil prices, OPEC Plus sources have said.
Oil prices gained more than 1% on Wednesday after reports of Israel preparing a strike on Iranian nuclear facilities raised fears that a conflict could upset supply availability in the key Middle East producing region. Brent futures for July rose 68 cents, or 1.04%, to $66.06 a barrel, by 0630 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures for July climbed 70 cents, or 1.1%, to $62.73. New intelligence obtained by the United States suggests that Israel is preparing to strike Iranian nuclear facilities, CNN reported on Tuesday, citing multiple U.S. officials familiar with the matter.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The Trump administration has lifted a month-old stop work order on Empire Wind, a $5 billion wind farm project off the coast of New York, in a compromise with the state that could also see cancelled plans for a gas pipeline revived, officials said on Tuesday. Norway's Equinor said construction work can now resume on the project, which is expected to provide power for 500,000 homes from 2027 onwards. Shares in Equinor, which is mostly reliant on oil and gas, were up by 1.5% by 10:16 GMT.
An expected stronger hurricane season than average raises the risk of weather-related production outages in the U.S. oil industry, the U.S. Energy Information Administration said on Tuesday. A large portion of U.S. oil production and the bulk of the country's refineries are in areas prone to hurricanes along the U.S. Gulf Coast. That concentration means more than 1 million barrels per day of U.S. refining capacity, which is roughly 5% of daily U.S. petroleum consumption, is likely to be shut in anticipation of a major storm, the government agency said. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. Iron ore futures edged up on Wednesday on a weaker U.S. dollar and resilient demand for the steelmaking ingredient, though weakness in the Chinese property sector limited the rise. The most traded September iron ore contract on China's Dalian Commodity Exchange traded 0.55% higher at 727 yuan, $100.86, a metric ton as of 0248 GMT. The benchmark June iron ore on the Singapore Exchange was 0.35% higher at $99.75 a ton. The demand for iron ore has exceeded expectations, particularly as steel mills continue to operate at high levels, broker Hexen Futures said.
Copper prices in London rose on Wednesday, tracking weakness in the US dollar and stimulus efforts from top consumer China, although gains were limited due to persisting uncertainty over economic growth from tariffs. Benchmark copper on the London Metal Exchange was up 0.4% at $9,556 a metric ton as of 0708 GMT. The US dollar fell on Wednesday, extending a two-day slide against major peers, making greenback-priced commodities less expensive for buyers holding other currencies.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Malaysian palm oil futures inched higher on Wednesday, supported by stronger prices of rival edible oils and relatively bullish export data, though increasing output and inventory levels kept gains in check. The benchmark palm oil contract for August delivery on the Bursa Malaysia Derivatives Exchange had risen by 8 ringgit, or 0.2%, to 3,916 ringgit, $917.10, a metric ton at the midday break. The contract rose for the past 2 consecutive sessions. Crude palm oil futures traded higher due to the strength in the rival oilseeds market and positive export data, a Kuala Lumpur-based trader said. That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.